Welcome to the Made in Monroe podcast. Boy, do I have a treat for you guys today. I have Larry Bell Jr. With us today. He's an insurance company owner. He's a poet. He's a motivational speaker. When you hear his voice, you will not forget it. You've probably heard him on the Monroe City video. And so, Larry, I cannot thank you enough for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure.
It is my pleasure. I'm just going to sit here and listen to you talk.
Smell.
I can remember the first time I heard the City of Monroe video and thought, wow, who is that behind the camera? Like, whose voice is that?
Yes, ma'am.
So originally from New Orleans.
Yes, ma'am.
So how in the world did you end up in Monroe?
You know what? We came here because of a woman by the name of Katrina.
Uh-oh. That's how a lot of people ended up here.
That's right. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
And so then just decided once you got here that you were, how did you end up planting roots here
Well,
to stay?
my wife, her mother actually lives here as well.
Okay.
And so my family went to Houston, like so many people went to Houston, Texas, and Alexandria, and all over the nation, and even all over the world. But I say, you know what? My wife is literally 9 months pregnant. I'm about to get her to her mom. So I got her over to her mom, and we had our first son, which he's going to make 20 years old this year.
Wow.
So that's 20 years being in Monroe, Louisiana.
That is crazy. Wow.
Absolutely.
What an interesting story of getting here and then planting. I feel like we are the lucky ones that ended up with you here.
Well, thank you.
So
Thank you.
you've built both your insurance businesses and your personal brand as a speaker and a poet simultaneously. What is your mission behind this unique combination?
You know what? We just want to be successful. We want to give glory to God. We also want to leave a legacy. I've always had a vision on being an ambitious young man and to take care of my family and to leave something here when I'm gone.
Yeah.
Leave a mark in the earth, especially for my kids.
Right. So
Yes.
leave the place better than you found it.
That's
right?
right. Absolutely.
So how do you balance all of these different passions that you have?
You know what? There's a word that I learned actually in New Orleans. I was working for an arborist down there, and he taught me a word called compartmentalize. And so I've learned how to compartmentalize in my own mind, which basically is to set up binders in my brain and say, hey, this is for this is for that. Now, sometimes they overlap, and having the gifts and the skill set that I do have, it doesn't matter if it overlaps because they're kind of similar. I'm a speaker,
Yeah.
whether it be spoken word poetry, whether it be in my business selling insurance, whether it be ministering to people and so on. It all comes together. But I compartmentalize business, family, ministry, spoken word, and every other thing that I do as well. Yes, ma'am.
So how did you, from a young age, like, did you just love poetry and speaking and like, how did you get into that?
That's a great question. At a young age, I was a rapper.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
I was one of the best MCs that ever do it, but with that said, everybody wanted to rap in New Orleans as young teenagers or what have you. But I was also in the church, and at that time, rap was considered the devil,
Absolutely.
but I loved it so much that I said, you know what? I'm just going to slow it down a little bit. And so I slowed it down and I began to do poetry, still rhyming, still have bars, but the message is going forward and I'm still doing what I'm wanting to do and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and you're back to what you just said. You're able to do it, and and it's positive.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you have a very, very diverse background,
Mhm.
lots of passions, lots of interests that you've really kind of that they've made you who you are, and
Yes.
people have come to know you for. And so we talked a little bit about how Katrina's what brought you here. What kept you here? Like what attracted you to the city of Monroe to stay here and to plant those roots here?
That's a very great question. Once again, I had my first son here, and then not so long after that, we had another son. And then not so long after that, we had another son. And then we had a baby girl. Bottom line is we wanted to be in a place where we can be stationary. It's not too fast, it's not too slow. It's a great place for family.
Right.
And the school system was great. We lived in the Lexington, Saliumbo area, and it was very good to our babies as they were growing up. And we said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and put stakes here, and we're going to make Monroe our home.
Well, and you know, just to kind of go off of that, so every journey, which you've had a journey from New Orleans to here and getting here, every journey has pivotal moments in it or challenges in them. And so, can you share a powerful moment or challenge in your journey that really significantly impacted you and who you are as an individual?
You know what? I got to a point, when I came to Monroe, I was in my early 20s, newly married. Katrina had just happened. I had a wife and I had one kid at the time, and I was responsible for them. I had to protect, I had to provide, I had to make money.
Yeah.
Nobody was giving me anything. Everybody was trying to get it. And so that motivated me to work,
Mm.
to have vision. And I always had a vision of having my own business. But in the meantime, I had 3 jobs at one time. You know, I worked for an insurance agency. I did a paper route from 2:30 in the morning to almost 6:30 in the
Oh
morning.
my goodness.
And then after that, I went to a local hospital and shined their floors. So I barely slept, but I made an additional $1,500 a month, for my family.
Yeah.
So one thing I learned about myself is ambition,
Mm.
and making it happen. Yes, ma'am.
Wow. So, as you look to the future, what opportunities do you see here in Monroe for your business, your speaking career, and your family?
I see a lot of opportunity, especially being a city where we have a university. We have the opportunity for all type of individuals to come here for 4 years,
Mm.
and some of them leave, and some of them decide to stay.
Right.
So we do have the potential of new clients, new church members, new
Mhm.
business owners, new families, and so on. So Monroe has been a thriving city, and we expect that to go even
To
further.
continue. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
What is your favorite thing about Monroe?
I like the peace, and of course, in my world, sometimes you have to make peace. But I like the fact that we live on the bayou, Bayou Desir. That kind of reminds me of down south. And so just being able to go to even the Washita River. When I was in New Orleans, we would go to Lake Pontchartrain and we'll just sit out there and eat crawfish. We'll laugh, we'll joke, or just sometimes chill.
Yeah.
And so every now and again, I'll tell my wife, I say, babe, I'm about to go by the river. I'm about to lay down my burdens by the riverside. And so
Sounds like a song.
yeah, it is a song, and, so with that said, I like the fact that we have rivers, we have water, that's something in the world,
Something in the
and, I love that about the city of Monroe, and I love it's versatile, and also the diversity of Monroe as well. You have this, you have that, you have young, you have old, you have
Mm.
this color, you have this mentality, and I love the fact that it's diverse.
So, what is a piece of advice or wisdom that you would share with somebody that's wanting to carve their own path to success here in Monroe and plant roots here and plant businesses here?
I think a great piece of advice for anyone is to not be impulsive, basically to write the vision, to write it out and give it time, let it grow, let it come to into fruition and so on. And um, sometimes you're going to make mistakes, sometimes things are not going to go how you want it to go
Mm.
because life is
Yeah,
complex.
it is.
Life is very complex. But I would tell someone to make a plan and stick with that plan and stay positive.
Yeah, that's good
Absolutely.
advice. I like
Yeah.
that. What does the future look like for Larry Bell and his businesses?
You know what? I'm at a beautiful place in my business. I'm a very hands-on individual, so I like doing everything myself. That's in my natural life, that's in my business life. But God has blessed where I'm now able to have a few agents that's working with me. And so sometimes when I'm at my desk and I get a call, not from a client, but from an agent, and I'm teaching them or helping them do what I do, it feels good. So I'm seeing myself now not necessarily producing as much as an individual, but training other agents. And so when I was sitting at my desk and I now have 2 monitors, I have my laptop, I have my big monitor, and I said, you know what? This feels like a control center. And it's not the point that I want to be in
Yeah.
control, but it's the ability to see things, touch things, and help those that are trying to come up after
Mhm.
me.
I like that. So for people that are wanting to get involved in the community and wanting to really serve their community,
Mhm.
what would you tell them to do? How would you tell them to go about that?
I would tell them, first of all, just do it. Just do it, but start where you're at. It could be in your own neighborhood. That can be picking up trash. It can start with a smile. Smiles are contagious.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
smile at somebody, they smile back at you. Giving people compliments,
Mm.
speaking positive words, and you can start right where you're at. And then also, of course, you want to get involved, you can reach out to the city of Monroe, reach out to nonprofit organizations, reach out to the local churches and ask them, how can I volunteer? So I would tell someone, first of all, start wherever you're at and then begin to go from there.
Yeah, I like it. Just do it.
Let's just do it.
Just do it.
Just
Just
do it.
get out and do it.
That's right.
I like
Mhm.
it. Well, Larry, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it. I've loved hearing your story as how you started in New Orleans and you ended up in Monroe by way of a lady named Katrina. I love
Right.
that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. And we just appreciate you and all that you're doing for our community. Larry, your art really has had such an impact on the city of Monroe and just everything from the stuff that you do by yourself to really the city of Monroe. I keep going back to that, but the city of Monroe video, I feel like that was kind of a breaking out moment where people were like, who is this person
Yes.
behind this video? And so, how did you get involved with that?
You know what? I'm quite sure it happened. I think there's a quote that said, "Your name is being mentioned in places that you have not yet went into or
Yeah.
went into, and so on." So, as they were casting vision for the state of the city, and as you know, it was during the time of COVID, and the state of the city is normally held in the civic center in person. They wanted to do something different this year and creative. And so it was mentioned, let's start it off with a spoken word piece, spoken word poetry. And so the question was asked, who does that around here? So a couple of names were mentioned. I guess my name was mentioned the most. And so the production company reached out to me and said, you know what? I heard this, I heard that. We're thinking about doing this. And he began to tell me about it. I began to share some work that I've done with him.
Mm.
And he began to share some work that he's done as well. And we just had a good mesh, if you please.
Mm.
We clicked and I was called into one of the meetings and they cast more vision. I took notes and then I just basically went home, began to pray, began to meditate and began to look for the words. And it came. It came like in 2 weeks, I was done. Um,
Incredible.
and so it wasn't due probably until a month or two later, but it
Just
came to me. Yep. And the rest is history.
And so you came up with all of that
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
video. Like that
Absolutely.
was all just
Yes.
straight from you.
Yep.
That is
Yes.
incredible. I feel like we
Yes.
can't have a City of Monroe video going forward that you're not in. Like, or that you're not the voice, so as you see it. I know you don't, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like that is what people associate with Monroe now. Like whenever that video came out, I mean, it was the buzz around town. And I actually remember calling a few people and saying, I know I sound crazy. I've never even watched one of these things before.
Yeah.
But you have to go watch the City of Monroe video. It is
Yes.
unreal.
Absolutely.
And you could just feel your passion.
Yes.
You could really feel the energy of the city in the video.
Right.
And I mean, it really did. It came out from you.
Thank you. Thank you. And a lot of people, they didn't know that I wasn't born and raised in Monroe, but I've been here long enough, to learn about Monroe. But also, I definitely have to give glory to God, in prayer and saying, God, I want you to be included
Yeah.
in this piece right here.
Wow.
And so there were people saying, how did you know this? How did you know that? Some of it is observation, but a lot of it was coming to me by revelation. And that's why I think it was so impactful. And you may have heard it, but I've heard people say that they left from Monroe and they heard the video where they were at, and they say, you know what? Let's pack our bags
Right.
and get back to Monroe. And so
Wow.
that was so awesome because after the first one, we started the next one was revival. Something in the water, and then revival,
Yeah.
and then rooted, and then our last one we had the winds are blowing. Yes.
I love that. And all of that, were those all your ideas, like, that came to you, like, the names of each of them even?
No, the names
No?
that was not my ideas, but like I said, vision was cast,
Right.
and I took that and began to write, Basically a skeleton was put there, and I began to put the flesh and the skin and the veins and all of that on
My
it.
goodness.
Yes.
So tell me about some of your other art and some of the other things that you've done.
Yeah, we've been doing this, like you said. Um, we were doing poetry in the library. Um, I was helping young kids learn, teach them how to do poetry, and so on. Of course, doing poetry at youth services and churches, and so on. And so, basically, just being consistent and being in position
Mm.
in the right place in the right time, and then tap and say, "Hey, we need you
Yeah.
for a bigger thing."
I love that you're willing to be used for all of those things as well, and that God just puts you in the right place at the right time, and the impact that you're making is incredible. I want to go back to something we talked a little bit about, just Monroe and your favorite thing about Monroe, but I really want to know what you think. So you've lived away, you've traveled a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What sets Monroe apart as a city to
You
you?
Monroe is like the best of both worlds. I feel like Monroe is a place where you can start, and it's also a place where you can finish. But now we're trying to make it a place where you can just live your whole life here. And I believe that this administration, along with the last administration, everybody played a part. We're making Monroe a place just to live forever in.
Mm.
But when I first came, I said, you know what? I'm used to New Orleans, the fast pace, the culture, all of that type of thing. And I had a relief of being in a place where I can kind of calm down and relax. And then I say, you know what? If we were to leave Monroe, I'm not gonna go back to New Orleans. I may come back to Monroe, and retire.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a love and appreciation for the city of Monroe, Louisiana.
Wow. So I was talking with someone earlier and they said, I really believe that Monroe was meant for greatness. We had Delta Airlines was founded here and the first Coke was bottled here,
That's right.
but we kind of missed our mark. Tell me what you think about that. What does greatness look like for Monroe going forward?
You know what? I really feel like you can tell the fruit of something by the roots of something. So since that's in our roots, I feel like the tree that Monroe is going to begin to produce that same fruit. New businesses,
Mm.
like Delta and like Coca-Cola, or watch this, probably even greater,
Right.
are going to come out of Monroe, Louisiana, because that's our foundation.
Yeah. Y'all
Yes.
heard it. What your businesses are going to come out of Monroe even greater than Delta. I love it. Larry, thank you so much for being here. I loved hearing your story, the impact that you're making through your art and your business here in our area. Thank you for choosing to invest here and for making such an impact on our community. I look forward to seeing all of the great things that you do in the years ahead.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes.